Okay. Hi, everybody. Oh, this is Michelle Marie, and I am here with Pi Venus Winslow. And we attempted to do this earlier today. And I'm always so curious about, like, okay, what was the meaning? What was happening here that some crazy snafu happens? So we are back and more excited than ever to have this conversation.
Yes.
So, hi, Pi.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi again.
So good to see you twice in one day. I win.
Woo! Yes. So I'm going to take a moment and read Pi's bio because every woman that I interview is an entrepreneur, and they've all felt the call somehow to come to this conversation about power and women. And I met Pi at a 3-day event that a fellow friend and colleague was running. And just instantly, Pi and I, like sisters from another mister, or some kind of past life, something, I don't know, but we just both immediately fell in love with each other. And I think there is this quality that we share of optimism and joy, and really like allowing ourselves to be present with what is and giving ourselves permission to be joyful. And you'll hear a lot more about Pi's story specifically around that subject in just a moment. Pi is a transformational life coach for women, and she helps women with narcissistic mothers who suffer from crippling self-doubt and low self-esteem to embrace their authentic selves and embody fearless confidence, so that they can have loving, healthy relationships, thriving health, and lead joyful, successful lives. She has been a trainer for over 20 years and is a certified mindset and manifestation coach. Her personal self-exploratory transformational journey of recovering from maternal narcissistic wounding and abuse has led to her calling to now guide other women through this healing journey. She does this by weaving myth, ritual, and magic together to support the transformational process, utilizing ancient crafts of divination and ritual and manifestation in her coaching programs. And I love this. Pi believes that all women are manifestations of the goddess in the flesh. And every single one of us has incredible value to share with the world. When we embrace ourselves, our sisters, and our divine feminine power, we can rise. Woo! Woo! Yes!
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 Yay! So, as a fellow sister who has gotten some feedback about being so optimistic, what can you say about your experience and journey with that piece, about being just an optimist?
An optimist, yes. Well, when I was a little girl, of course, I was optimistic and happy and joyful, as we all are when we are little children, because
yes.
we are so pure and innocent.
Yes.
And then life happens.
Damn it.
I know. And we become domesticated. We become conditioned in culture and in family. And so, there did come a point in my life where I got flack and feedback and negative feedback and criticism for being optimistic.
Yeah.
I know for a fact that because I grew up with a narcissistic mother, and I realize now that she suffers from narcissistic personality disorder, that me being happy really bothered her.
Yeah.
It really bothered her. I think a lot of narcissists, because they're so self-absorbed, they think everybody should feel the way they feel at all times. So if she was unhappy, I should be unhappy. And if I wasn't, then, well, she would do something to make me unhappy. So yeah, I mean, I'd get ridiculed. If I was happy and, about something or celebrating something, I'd be criticized. I'd be told I was showing off. I'd be told, like,
Well, it
oh,
takes the attention away from the narcissist, right? Like
right.
it's pulling the focus, the spotlight away from whatever's going on for them. And so when this joyful little creature comes in, like who isn't going to pay attention to this joyful little person who walks in the door? And that can really do a number on the person who's got that level of wounding, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So yes, I have been criticized for being joyful, and unfortunately, on my journey and because of my conditioning and what I experienced, my joy got squashed for a long, 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 long time.
Yeah.
And so when I reclaimed my authentic self, I realized, oh my gosh, I can be happy again. It's okay. It's okay. I can be happy, and I can have joy, and I can smile, and I can celebrate, and nothing bad is going to happen to me now because I've rearranged my life and changed who I allow in my life. I don't allow, my mother is not a part of my life anymore. That was a difficult decision that I made, but it was a good decision. It was a good decision because it for me, it was the first step on my healing journey to recover from the abuse, was to get away from the person.
Yeah. Did you ever have, like, one of the things that I see in others, but I've also definitely seen this in myself, those of us with any kind of trauma history, yes, there's this fear of the joy itself, right? Because of our experience of having that squashed in different ways. But for some of us, there's also, like, if I'm feeling joy, then somehow I'm discounting my trauma, right? So, like, I'm taking myself out of the victim role or position when I'm in this place of joy, and I don't know how to navigate this world of joy or this experience of joy because what I'm used to is this thing back here, right? Did you have any experiences with things like that?
Yes, yes. And it was all very interesting to me when I realized that I would squash my own joy.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I would squash my own joy because there was a part of me that felt guilty for feeling good.
Yeah.
And I think that was, I think that was kind of programmed into me.
Yeah.
Because I actually was shamed for feeling good and told I should feel guilty for feeling good because somebody else didn't,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, it's, of course, it's possible to have empathy for other people and compassion for other people who are going through a difficult time. And we also get to know that we are all one, but we are also all sovereign beings, and that we do not need to take on other people's energy, other people's grief, other people's sadness, other people's sorrow. I think for people who have experienced narcissistic abuse growing up, who have been kind of bred to be codependent, that we feel responsible for other people's feelings. And so if somebody else is hurting, we want to take on that hurt because it hurts us to see them hurt.
Yeah.
And that's that rescuer.
Yep. Yep. And there seems to be this amazing, interesting pull, at least in adult relationships. As a child, you don't have a choice or an option, but in adult relationships, when sometimes that gets replayed and recreated, what's so fascinating is seeing that the narcissist is almost always driven to the empath. that it's like they can smell and sense and recognize immediately, this person is going to take care of me and my needs. And initially it may be a very genuine, desire to have that reciprocation and be taken care of. But what ends up happening for the poor empath is that they get like, inundated and covered in the other person's stuff, and they don't know how to separate themselves from their partner. And so I know one of the most important subjects that you often talk about is boundaries. So give us, lay down some boundary magic on us.
Boundary magic. Well, yeah, boundaries are, for I work with women who had narcissistic mothers. So a lot of times I will go into speaking from that perspective. But
Right.
as a daughter who grew up with a narcissistic mother, I was not allowed to have boundaries growing up. In fact, I didn't know what boundaries were. I did not understand boundaries because they were not modeled for me. They were not demonstrated. I had no power. I was not allowed to draw boundaries. If I did try to draw a boundary, it was immediately crossed with a smirk and a reminder that I didn't have that power, that I was the child and she was the mom, and because she's the mom, she can do whatever she pleases, and there were no consequences.
Yeah.
And so, when I went growing up, not knowing how to do that, not being able to learn how to do that, made me the perfect victim for abusers later in life, because I was afraid of what would happen if I set a limit or I set a boundary. I was afraid that I would be punished. I was afraid somebody would withdraw love from me. Something would be taken away. There would be some horrible consequence that I would experience if I set a limit. And so I would say yes. I would say yes all the time to things that I didn't want, I didn't like, that didn't sit well with me. And what ultimately it was a betrayal of myself. It was a betrayal to myself for not honoring my boundaries inside me, taking the risk of whatever might happen if I stood on that line and said, this is the line, and enforce the consequences, which sometimes are painful. Like if you set a line with somebody and you're like, this is my hard line, and they cross it, then you've got to make a decision.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Am I going to, like, am I just going to let it slide? And that teaches the other person how to treat us. That teaches the other person there's no consequence. And so we end up putting ourselves in the situation where we reinforce the bad behavior.
Yes. Yes.
Because we don't enforce the boundary, or we don't even set the boundary to begin with.
Right. Right. Yeah. I have, it's like I have a radar or a stamp on my forehead that says, I know how to support you in your relationship or leaving a relationship with a narcissist, or recognizing that your last relationship was with a narcissist. And that's something that comes up over and over and over again is, in lots of different ways. Like for some of us, it's our impulsivity, right? It's like, I go on a date, I tell myself I'm going to set this boundary of like, I'm going to get to know this dude for a while before I sleep with him. Like I really want to break this pattern of just giving myself away. And so I'm going to set this boundary with myself, and then my impulses take over and my hormones take over. And I'm like, oh, screw it. But what a lot of women don't understand is like, even though they don't necessarily know that you set that boundary, you just betrayed yourself, and that. And I firmly believe that people can read that in us, that if I've just crossed my own boundary, there is some kind of energetic exchange that's just happened between me and the other person. And they've picked up on the fact that my boundaries don't mean a lot. And then we get, it's 5 years down the line and we finally get tired and we want to set that boundary. And then of course our partner reacts to it or wants to cross it because, well, you liked it before or you were okay with it before,
Mm-hmm.
And so I love that you speak so much about boundaries. And I know the other thing that you really speak to is how do you come back to a place of self-trust?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the biggest damage of being in the world of a narcissist is you are confused, you experience gaslighting, you don't know up from down, you're constantly being told that what's true is not true. How do you rebuild that muscle of self-trust?
It's a process. It's
You
a
mean it just
process.
doesn't happen overnight? Just because I decide I want to trust myself, I can't just do it?
No, it's a process. It's a journey. It is the heroine's journey on so many levels. We have so many heroines' journees in our lives. It's just,
Right.
it's a spiral. It just keeps going.
Yeah.
We keep leveling up every round, right? So of course, the first step is, of course, get away from the narcissist. No contact, get away from the crazy so that you can get some clarity.
Yeah.
And start healing your nervous system, because the nervous system is so overly activated. All the hormones, all the cortisol, all the adrenaline, the fight or flight, all of the survival stuff, it wreaks havoc on the system. It really does. It's stress.
Yeah.
And when we talk about post-traumatic stress, and we also know stress is like the number one killer.
Right.
And it causes all kinds of physical problems and emotional problems and mental problems and stuff. So get away from it so that you can start calming your nervous system and get in a safe place. And then, start establishing boundaries. And a lot of times the first boundaries need to be very, very strong. They need to be very, very strict. They need to be very, very rigid because you just need that at first.
Yeah.
Stay safe and to get back into a place where you can it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And then slowly you could start shifting and changing those boundaries. And so here's a funny thing. I didn't realize for the longest time that I couldn't change my mind. That it was okay for me to change my mind.
Can you believe that shit? Now you had a double whammy, because then you can't change your mind with the narcissist because that brings up all kinds of shit. But also for women, we have gotten the message that our flexibility, our ability to be in touch with what we want, and you know what? Actually, no, I don't think I want that, has been devalued and demonized. Women have been demonized and told that we're unpredictable, that we're changeable, that we're flighty, we're flaky, because we change our minds. What the hell is that?
I know. So it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to try different things on. That's the part of getting to know who you are again, because there's so much self-doubt around, leaving a narcissistic relationship, whether it's with a partner or a parent, or a sibling or whoever it is, figuring out who you are. And I think you said it in another conversation that we had, you stripping yourself down to the bones, and then figuring out do I like this? Do I like this thing? Do I like that thing? All my life I've thought I've seen myself this way, but do I really like that? And maybe I do and maybe I don't. Or maybe maybe I've outgrown it, or maybe I like it, but I want it in a different color, or different size, or.
And when you start going down that road, It's huge. I mean, this do I like to eat that? Just because my ex would force, whatever, not my particular situation, but, because somebody, that was what they liked the most. And so that's what I made the most. Like, do I actually like that? Colors, clothing, stuff on your walls, smells. I mean, it's literally, like you said, going back to the, like, pretending you're a baby and just like, you're now re-exploring the world with wonder and so curious about what it is you actually like and what you actually want.
Yeah. Yeah. And being okay with that changing, because it's a discovery process.
Yes, exactly.
And it takes a little time. Like you might need to do it for a little while before you kind of get in tune with that. Like, no, actually,
Mm-hmm.
no. Or maybe it just shifted and changed because you're shifting and changing, because we're
Exactly.
constantly shifting and changing. And when we start taking action in our lives and changing our systems or our situations, then we start to change inside too.
Right.
That's the transformation. And so the choices will change, the preferences will change, the tastes will change. And so as far as setting boundaries, it's important to communicate with other people those changes and those things. And so and I honestly believe, like, if people love and care about you, and you say, this thing has changed for me now, and what I really want is this. If they're willing to agree to that, then you've got an agreement.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And if they're not willing to agree to it, then you get to make a choice.
Yeah. And they won't know unless you actually take the risk of saying what you want or asking for what you want. That's the other piece that I see women struggle so much with is this idea, this like fairy tale that if you love us, you're going to read our mind, and be able and just be like the perfect parent, this representation. It doesn't work that way, and part of the issue is that for many women, they haven't done the actual inquiry to ask themselves what they want. They're back in that struggle, right? Back in that victim role of like, well, you tell me what I want because that's what I'm used to.
Yes.
And that's no fun.
No. Well, yes, you end up disappointed.
Oh, hold on a second. You're breaking up a little bit. Okay, I think you're back.
Oh, yeah, I think it froze up. Yeah. So yes, and I've got like lots of thoughts around why that happens. I
Go
think,
for it.
my experience growing up with a narcissistic parent was I was supposed to be a mind reader. I was supposed to know. I was supposed to know better. I was told that so many times. You should know better,
Right.
or you know better than that, or whatever. So I was supposed to be a mind reader. And then, of course, I assumed everybody was supposed to be a mind reader.
Right.
And then I like get out in the world and I'm like, I'm so disappointed that you cannot read my mind. You don't know what I want. I'm so trying to read your mind all the time because that's what I've been taught to do. But why are you reading my mind? And oh, the disappointment. Oh, the miscommunication. Oh, just like if we could just get over the fear of being who we are and asking for what we want and learning how to ask for it in a way that that gives us a clear answer.
Right.
Like I had a therapist who taught me this like amazing communication formula where the last part of the conversation was, you would ask for what you wanted, and then the very last question was, are you willing to do that?
Yes. Or is there anything I can do to help you give me what I need?
Yeah. And just asking that question, like, then you get the answer. That then there's no like the person, it's like a yes or no answer. Are you willing to do that? Yes. Great. We have an agreement. No. Okay. I get to make a different choice now.
Right. Right. Oh, okay. So let's go there. You did your get to. So something that I love about this woman, we were in a conversation and she was in her car and we were talking about something. I don't even remember what it was. And I said something like, well, I have to do this thing. And she says, oh, you mean you get to? And I started to notice, I had noticed it before, but that was kind of like the final, example. It was like, wait, she does this thing where she says I get to all the time. And I became so curious about that. So tell us about how you came to that, why that's such kind of a signature pie statement.
Well, it's not my signature thing. I can't take credit for it. I've been taught and trained by other mentors and coaches who have
Mhm.
taught me about language and how important language is. Because on a subconscious level, the things that we say in our heads to ourselves and the things that come out of our mouths are, are in alignment. So if we're thinking negative things about ourselves, we may notice we say negative things about ourselves.
Right.
And if we think negative things about other people, we'll say negative things about other people. And if we come from a place of victim
Right.
or not having choice, I have to, I must, I've got to,
Right.
or I should.
Mhm.
Um, Being aware of that language and shifting and changing it so that it's a reminder that we always have a choice
Yeah.
is so much more empowering.
Yeah.
Like I get to go to work.
Mhm.
Hopefully what I get to go to work to do is something that I love to do. And if it isn't, I get to ask myself, why am I not doing what I love to do? Why am I
Exactly.
going to a job that I hate?
And what are
Um,
my options?
what
If
are
I
my
can just see it that way, then okay, so what options do I have then if I don't like my job or if I don't like the situation?
right, right. And taking responsibility for that choice.
Yeah.
Like, you can weigh it out. Like, well, I'm staying at this job I don't like because I want the paycheck. You still get to go to that job and get that paycheck. That's why you're going.
Yeah.
I get to go get that big fat paycheck.
Yeah.
And if that's not enough, if that's not making you happy, then you can dig a little deeper and see what other
Yeah.
options you have. But when I learned from my coaches that I could change my language, that I could empower myself to be reminded that I always have choices, because
Mhm.
I didn't know I had choices
Yeah.
before. I didn't know it. And it took a lot of coaching for that to open up for me in my mind, for me to be able to see all of the possibilities.
Yeah.
When they say, one door closes, another one opens, I never saw the other one that opened. It was always the doors were closing, right? But
Right.
it was because I was only looking this way.
Yeah.
And when we have somebody kind of like go, look over this way, and you can see it from a different angle or a perspective, you're like, oh wait, there is a door there. Oh,
Yeah.
and there's another one. And there's another one. And then it's up to me to choose the next thing, the next course of action.
And I think that's, you bring up another really important point, which is just simply we all need guidance. We all need support. We do need someone to turn our head just slightly to the left so that we can see a different perspective, or ask a question that really forces us to reevaluate the words that just came out of our mouth and how often we do that. And it's so deeply important. And I remember when we were talking before, I love the way that you put how you realized the importance of investing in yourself. Can you speak a little bit to that piece?
Yes, yes, and thank you for asking about
Yeah.
that, because this is so big, and this was such a pivotal moment on for me in my journey.
Yeah.
Was when of course I started out seeking, looking, signing up for everything, following coaches, watching interviews like this one, videos and classes and webinars. And when I saw women who had what I wanted, I'd listen to their stories and I'd connect with them. I'd be like, oh my goodness, like, look at her. Like, she's been through so much, and, all these things happened. And then, she now, like, look at her now. She's empowered. She holds her head high. She's just got this charisma. She's happy. She's got relationships. She's got her own business. She's successful. She's happy. Like, I want that.
Yeah.
How do I get some of that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when I started talking to these women and getting to know them and stuff, and they would say, well, I can show you how to do that. You can work with me. But I would get stuck on making that investment in myself, like realizing like, oh, I've got to commit to 6 months or 9 months, or oh, like, this is actually like gonna cost me money. It's not free. It's not, it's not gonna happen overnight. It's not like a fast food thing or whatever. Like, it's actually something that I've got to invest in. One of the coaches asked me, she said, well, is this something that you really want? And I'm like, yes, it is. And she's like, so is it this? Is it this? Is it this? Like, we worked through all of the things that I was telling myself why I couldn't do it. And what it really came down to when she asked me, like, well, if you really want this and all the other things are aligned for you to do it, like, why aren't you doing it? Like, what's stopping you? Why aren't you giving this to yourself?
Yeah.
And I thought, why am I not giving this to myself? And then I realized that I had this belief that I wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not worth the money that it's going to cost. I'm not worth the time it's going to cost. I'm not worth the investment. I'm not worth the plane ticket to go to that mastermind.
Yeah.
I'm not worth a plane ticket. I'm not worth a couple $100, or I'm not worth a weekend, or, like, when I realized that, I got mad. I got mad at myself for a moment, but then I realized, like, I've thought that way my whole life, because I was taught at a young age that I didn't matter.
Yeah. That
I wasn't important, that my wants and needs were irrelevant. Yeah. And, and so that belief system became very apparent to me. And I decided that I was like, well, I am going to do it. I am. And I happily, like, went down to the bank. I couldn't wait to wire the money to my first coach. And it was scary too. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm spending this money. I'm going to do this thing. Like, when you sign up for college or something, or you buy a new car, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm signing this contract. I'm going to do this thing. But you're excited because you want it, and it's going to improve your life. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's why we do these things. Yeah. So I had a very strange block around my value when it came to investing money, time. When I realized that, it was a big shift for me. Yeah. And so once I realized, like, oh my gosh, I'm worth this thing, and I want this thing, and I can have this thing. And I saw the results. Like, I started seeing myself shift and change. I started noticing, like, I'm learning how to change my language. Yeah. And I'm seeing that I have more choices now. Like it all, like, started to open up. And then I was like, oh, I can't get enough of this. More.
And what an incredibly beautiful model you are for other women. Like, you are the woman on the interview today. You are that woman that other women are looking to and going, well, maybe, like you said before, maybe I can dare to believe that I can do that too.
If I
What
can
a
do it, you can do it.
gift. What a gift. And it's like, that's what happens when we cross that line and we invest in ourselves and we heal. We don't just heal us, we heal everybody around us. We become a lighthouse for others to go, well, maybe I could do that. Maybe I could, you know what I mean? It's like, it's almost like, if you think about it in the other direction, it's almost selfish not for us to not heal ourselves, because then we're holding it all in here. You know what I mean? It's like, there's, every woman can have such an impact in her
Yes.
world by simply investing in herself.
Yes. Yes. And sharing her gifts with the world,
Yes.
you know? So, but you get to figure out what your gifts are. And
Yes.
you get to do that by learning what you like and what you don't like, and having somebody else point it out to you, like, you know, you're really good at this thing. Really? I am? You're right. I don't ever think about it though.
Yeah.
And that's because that's your gift. Like, you don't see it because you're in it and you're doing it. So that feedback is so important. That
It
feedback
is.
is so critical.
Yeah.
Somebody else to show you what you may not be seeing, what your blind spots are.
Yeah.
And yes, the work starts with ourselves. That's how we heal the world. If
Exactly.
every single person on this planet just focuses on them, just focusing on what they have control over, which is only ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and shifting and changing that, and then it you know, we inspire the next person. We lift the other person up. We call the other people forward, and we support them on their journey. And it goes. It's
Mm-hmm.
this.
Well, that, talk about power. Like, influence is power. Having the ability to influence in a way that feels so good to you, feels so in alignment, because you know that you did the work and you went inside and you healed yourself. Like, that is such a powerful place to be, to know that you are impacting not only yourself but the people around you through that work. I
Mm-hmm.
love that. And so what is your definition of power? Like, if you were to, I know it's what I love about this interview series, like, you're number 14 and I still don't know that anybody has given the same definition twice, you know, for what power means. And I love that. I love that it's that rich and complex. But if you were to kind of break it down based on your experience and your knowledge, what would be your kind of working definition of power at this point in your life?
Oh my goodness. You know, I don't know that anybody's ever asked me that, or that I've ever thought about it, but what I felt in my heart that came up as you were asking that question was, loving yourself is your power. Knowing yourself is your power. Trusting yourself, your word, your promise to yourself, and your integrity to yourself. That's power.
Yeah. I love that. So you just brought something up that I think is such a beautiful nugget, because we're so focused on narcissism in this conversation. Many of the women that I've met who have left narcissistic relationships have a terrible fear that they are a narcissist anytime that they direct the attention and energy toward themselves. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes. Yes. So it's okay. It's okay to love yourself and to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
There is such a huge difference between narcissism and having like a healthy ego and healthy boundaries and a healthy sense of self, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a reason when you're on the airplane that they tell you to put the mask on yourself first before you assist someone else. And that's because if you die, you can't help other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you don't take care of yourself, you can't be there for other people.
Yeah.
If you're not walking the walk, you're not inspiring and modeling and leading other people.
Yeah.
And so it's not selfish to love yourself. In fact, narcissists, there's a common myth around narcissists that they love themselves.
No.
But the truth is they don't.
No.
They are very, very fragile.
Yeah.
Very, very fragile egos, very, very fragile mask that they wear, that they need the rest of the world to believe is who they truly
Yes.
are. Which is
They need the love to come from outside of themselves inward. And those of us who have done the work and are healing and healthy, or it comes from inside of us, right? Like, we love ourselves so that we can love others. And for the narcissist, it's like, tell me, give me, feed me.
yes,
Feed me and adore me and give me all of the things so that I can love myself. But guess what? It's never going to be enough, because there's this big, I'm like a sieve, and it's just going to move right through me, and I'm going to need more from you, and it's going to move through me, and I'm going to need more from you, right? And
right.
it's just such an interesting conversation with women to really help them make that distinction between, narcissism. With someone with narcissism does not have the ability to reflect on their own behavior. And so what I see empaths do is like over reflect on their behavior, right?
Yes.
And it's like, if you're here and you're worried about being narcissist, I can pretty much guarantee you that you're not.
Right. Yeah. And here's the other thing. When we learn how to really love and trust ourselves, we become less attractive to narcissists.
Yes.
They may be attracted to us initially, to our light, because they're like, ooh, there's something shiny that I can feed off of. But when you love and respect yourself, you pick up on that really quick.
Yes.
And you set those boundaries, and then they don't like that.
Yes.
And they'll lose interest because you're not needing them.
Yeah.
Because you already have what they're offering you. They're like the love bombing. Oh my God. The love bombing at the beginning of the narcissistic relationships. It's just so like, it could turn your stomach. It should turn your stomach. It actually turned my stomach, but I didn't even
recognize it.
What was happening. I'm like, this should be feeling really good, but it's almost kind of making me sick. Like, I didn't understand that until later. And then I was like, oh, that's why. Because there was a part of me that knew it wasn't real. It was phony. It was a trick. It was fake. But at that time I wasn't loving myself. And so I was like, oh, you love me? Oh, good. Yes. There was me saying yes again when there was a part of me going, no. And so when I got really clear on who I was, what I liked, what was important to me, what I valued, that I can love myself, that I can trust myself, to keep my word to myself, to keep my promises to myself, because I know when I don't follow through. Yeah. I know when I let myself down, and it feels awful.
It does.
So I don't want to do that anymore. So when I stop doing that, it's easier for me to walk away from someone when they're, what they're offering me is, when I can feel there's a catch, when I can feel there's a hitch, when I can feel there's an underlying agenda. Yeah. And if it doesn't feel right, I can walk away from it and know like that's okay. I really don't need you to like me. Mm-hmm. I really don't need you to like me. It's okay. Yeah. And that's another thing for women in business, and the vulnerability of being seen and, putting ourselves out there and speaking our truth. There's going to be people who watch this interview who are not going to like me, and I get to be okay with that. Yes. And honestly, like everybody's entitled to their opinion. Yeah.
And that's also how we find our people. We have to turn off some people to really find the people who are meant to be with us. And if we're not taking a stand, for something and we're not speaking our truth, then we're going to get clients we really don't want. We're going to get clients that aren't in alignment with us because we're doing the people pleaser thing. We're trying to please everybody, and then we get a client and our real self starts to come out and they're like, oh, what's this? I'd rather, me right off the bat, that the F-bomb comes out of my mouth quite often. Sorry if you don't like that, that's cool. Here I am. And it's such a big piece of visibility for women, especially when it comes to broadening your business in the online world. Like just that piece of showing up more frequently, having to really put your opinion out there, doing the Facebook lives and risking it messing up or whatever, it's definitely something that I see a lot are all kinds of interesting and fun barriers for us to play with around really stepping into our power and showing up as visibly and as authentically as we possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Yeah.
And I love that your secret sauce is around ritual and kind of alchemy and magic and all of these other pieces, because again, that's what distinguishes us, right? That's what separates us from other people who do similar work to what we do. So tell me how that comes into the work that you do.
Yes. Well, so I growing up with a narcissistic mother, I learned at a very young age that my mother, I could not trust my mother. That at any moment in time, she was going to get me. There was going to be the remark, there was going to be the punishment, the reprimand, the criticism, whatever it was. And so I didn't realize this until I got older, that I didn't trust women.
Mm.
And when I realized that I didn't trust women, I got to think about okay, but I'm a woman. So do I trust me?
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to say, well, of course I trust me. But then I had to really look at that and ask myself, well, actually, no, I don't. I don't trust myself because I've let myself down so many times. I've gotten into so many situations. I've allowed things to happen that I could have prevented if I had put a boundary up or, walked away or made a decision or spoke up or whatever it was.
Right.
And so
and you were talking about things like drugs and alcohol, you were talking about some pretty significant behaviors that you were engaged in to numb yourself out or to feel, right? That's often the byproduct.
Yes. So I really think when people experience trauma and abuse and then, later they've got, addiction issues and stuff, the addiction is the solution to the problem of the trauma. It's just an escape. It's a way to numb out. It's a medication in a way. So when you take the medication away, then what's been masked it comes up, right? Yes. so that's when we really get into the juicy stuff and start diving down into the dark and the deep and the shadow. The shadows, the parts that we've been hiding from. So I had a realization that I didn't trust women, that I didn't trust myself, and so I got to really look at that. And what I really wanted, what I really craved, of course, was loving relationships and intimate relationships with women, because I didn't have that with my mother. Even though I really wanted it, I didn't want it with her. I had this revulsion or, this not wanting to be anything close to my mother. I couldn't even stand her touching me, but I did want that connection. I did want that intimacy with other women. And I wanted to celebrate being a woman. I wanted to be proud of being a woman. When I saw other women who were shining and in their
Mhm.
power. Like I said, I wanted that. I wanted that for myself. And so when I went to my first ritual at a women's temple, like many, many years ago when I was in my 20s, I had no idea what to expect. I was terrified. I had all of these really strange like judgments and ideas, like who are all these hippie women with like all their things, and I don't belong here, and like I'm not like that, and I don't understand, and what are they doing? But they were so nice and they welcomed
Mm.
me. And the first thing these beautiful women all dressed in white like did was welcome me in, sit me down, and then they started like washing my feet and
Wow.
massaging my feet and bathing my feet and smudging me and anointing me with oils and blessing me and bringing me tea and setting me down in the circle. And then, you know, the ritual began where we talked about being a woman. We talked about the mysteries of being a woman, about
Mhm.
you know, how our cycles are linked to the moon, and you know how all, you know, throughout history what is feminine has been vilified.
Yeah.
And that, you know, the like what makes women women, the fact that we can give birth, that we can create, that you know, that we have a huge capacity for love, and we, you know, we nurture, we care, we're empathetic, we're compassionate. All of those things are seen from like the male side as cats.
We have a
We've got
visitor.
to get as a weakness.
Yeah.
And so I had I realized I just cried through that whole
I
ritual.
bet.
I
I
just
bet.
wept and wept and wept because it was like I was like, oh my gosh, here's this lost part of myself. And here's where I lost it along the way. Like I remember Mother Nature as a little girl. I remember hugging trees. I remember looking at the grass and connecting with the earth and the animals, and you know, and feeling that deep connection and reverence for the planet, and for other people. And then as I said in the beginning, we get domesticated,
Yep.
and we can lose that. We lose our authentic self. We lose that connection. And so when I found it again, I was like, oh my goodness, like I've got to figure out what this is. But I
Mhm.
still
Mhm.
had, you know, I still had to work through my fear of connecting to other women and trusting other women and trusting myself.
Yeah.
And so the next part was learning about ritual and how ritual can be a powerful way. It's a practice, a powerful practice to create change in our lives.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so,
because just like a pattern is formed from repetition, we need to use repetition to either combat a pattern or to create a brand new one.
yeah.
And it's like this myth that just because I want to stop doing something, that that's how it's going to happen, or I want to start doing something, I'm just going to be able to jump right in and do it. These little rituals bring us back to like, okay, you know, there's a way to do it, or a time to do it, or intention behind it. We've got our everyday rituals like brushing our teeth, but I love the idea too of liminal space, of like even just this conversation. We have created a liminal space here between the two of us where nothing else exists, and we are just here together in this ritual conversation, and I have my candle burning, and you know, there's intention to this. And I think anytime that we put intention and time into something, it's just so valuable, and it just helps us like mark time to some degree. And I've just found it in my work, because I was trained as a drama therapist. So there was a lot about myth and metaphor and archetypes and, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And there is something about like, let's take the real world and put it aside for a moment. And let's step into this beautiful liminal space where anything is possible. And
Mm-hmm.
let's mark this time and be intentional in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, literally magic happens when we allow that, when we give that time and space for something to happen.
Yes. Yes. And when we bring the energy of other women, when women come
Yes.
together, more than one woman comes together,
Mhm.
and we set that intention, and we create a meaningful ritual, a practice, a way to mark that,
Yeah.
a way to honor that. And then if we do it over and over again, it manifests.
Yeah.
And that's the magic part. And yes, and I talk about magic in that way too. It's the magic of transformation, it's the magic of manifestation, it's the magic of creation,
Yeah.
where we birth something that starts here as a thought and an intention,
Mhm.
and then it becomes real outside of us.
Yeah.
Not to say there aren't steps along the way and
Yeah.
things to do, but everything starts with a thought.
Yeah.
Everything starts with a thought, and then somebody does something to make it real.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
and we can do that. We can do that on an internal level when we change the way we think about things. If we change our language or we change our perspective,
Mhm.
then our lives begin to change outside.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I transformed my life from being codependent, from being afraid to be seen, from not having boundaries, from doing drugs and drinking and being in abusive relationships, and now my life is so completely different. It is so completely different.
And part of what I love about you too, that you really model and you exemplify, is that, I know a lot of people who do a lot of spiritual bypassing, a lot of like, just do your positive affirmations, just like, that's so low vibe to be angry, just be positive, and all of this kind of stuff. And it's like, I get it. I understand that you're trying to change your state, and all of that kind of stuff. But one thing that I really appreciate about you, Pi, is that you have this beautiful like through line of joy, right, throughout all of it. But there is no issue for you to like, yeah, there's dark stuff over here, like, let's take a look at it, let's shine a flashlight on it, take a look at it, yeah, that happened, and I made those choices, and that's where that's at, and I'm making these choices too, and check out my life over here, so you're not I don't see you as a proponent of like, let's just pretend everything's great when it's not. You have this beautiful ability to have one foot in both, your story and your experience and your pain, and you've worked through it and you've reframed it so that it's now a useful part of your life. And you have that you've reclaimed that natural, joyful exuberance that you had as a child, that allows you also to play in the dark. Like, that's one of my favorites. One of my superpowers is like humor, and just like we don't have to take ourselves so damn seriously all the time. Like, we can play in the dark. It's okay to get messy. It's okay to, have snot running down your face while you start giggling about something else, even though you just told this awful story about something that happened to you. It's like, it's all of it. It's
Yes.
all of it. And I love that you just kind of embody that embracing of all of it. And your language is such a big piece of that.
It is a big piece. It's a reminder that when this shit hits the fan, because it does.
It
It's not that
does.
my life is perfect all the time and I don't have my struggles or things don't come up and I don't have my breakdowns. I mean, just a couple of days ago, I was in complete breakdown. I cried the whole day long. I was like, oh my gosh, I just like, all these emotions were coming up, and so, but just the reminder of how far I've come, the work I've done, the language, the rituals. What got me out of it, what got me out of the spin, was coming back to my rituals.
Yeah.
My morning rituals are so important. I say prayers The poo says prayers with me. This cat loves ritual.
Mm.
This cat has her own golden chalice that she drinks from every morning, and it means so much to her. If
I
it
love
doesn't
it.
happen, she gets very, very upset. And the same with me. If I don't have, if I don't have my prayers where I get in alignment with the Divine Mother, the one I didn't have,
Yeah.
the one I get to have now,
Yeah.
who is me. I am my own mother. I have remothered myself.
Yeah.
I get to love myself. I get to be kind to myself. I get to guide myself. I get to tap into my wisdom.
Mhm.
Um, I get to cradle myself when I'm sad, and all the things that mothers do. I get to do that for myself, and a meditation and setting an intention for the day and stepping into that. If I don't do that, my day's not so great. So I've learned to do that. And sometimes I get reminded when I don't why I
Right.
need to do that.
Yes.
Why it's so important. And so,
Yeah.
yes, ritual and then the magic that happens. I mean, my days are always better when I do that. I can see more clearly. I have more gratitude. I'm calmer and I'm more centered. And when I'm in my power like that, when I'm in that way of being, then I can be present and hold that space for others.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I'm a wreck, I can't do that for other
Yeah.
people.
Absolutely.
So taking care of myself, there's an example.
And it's almost, to be honest, it's something that I know I can be kind of intense about. In my mind, it's imperative. If you are a healer in any way, shape, or form, and you're not doing the work, that's not a good thing.
Right?
I mean, really, how can you be a clean channel if you're not doing the work? How can you fully be present and not be attaching your own shit to the person that you're talking to if you are not consistently doing the work? It's so important. And I see so many people out there, men and women, non-binary folks, who are not necessarily doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
And it causes damage. It causes gurus, like the kind of unhealthy version of the guru who initially started as this wonderful, beautiful, powerful source and lost their way because they reattached themselves to their ego and they forgot that they are here to serve, and they maybe stopped doing the things that brought them back home and reconnected them.
Mm-hmm.
It's so big because power can be abused, and that's one of the things that we know from those of us who've experienced narcissism in our lives, is that power can be abused, and that's the last thing we want to
Yeah.
have perpetuated.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah. It's good. It's good to get clear on whatever ritual, whatever grounding, whatever technique, whatever it is that you enjoy doing,
Yeah.
that helps. Make it your own, make it something that you enjoy, make it something that you want to do so that you will do it. And cultivating that groundedness, that self-love, that compassion, that self-trust, so that when something doesn't smell right with anybody ever, like you can hear that whisper.
Yeah.
You can hear
So
that
important.
whisper. You see the red flag. You're
Yeah.
like, oh, I better kind of watch that. And like being mindful, being aware.
Yeah. Big, 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 big. Oh my goodness. Such a rich conversation. I love how even though we're exploring similar subjects, like so many other little things come in that are so important and so necessary to be said. Do you have any final nuggets, anything that you want to leave the people who are watching with that feels important at this time?
Yes, thank you. I would just love to leave anybody who's watching this interview, if you're struggling, if you are, if you're on your journey, wherever you are on your journey, I just want you to know that you're exactly where you're supposed to be and that it's okay. And it's a process. And we get to trust the process. And we also, we also get to cultivate love and compassion for ourselves and not be so hard on ourselves for not knowing better, for not being more evolved, for not having all of the answers, for just being where we're at on our journey.
Yeah.
And it's okay because there's going to be more journeys, and it's okay to make mistakes. I like to call mistakes missteps because there's always something to learn. And even if you step in the mud and you get your shoes dirty or you ruin that pair of shoes or whatever happens, you fall down, you skin your knee, you get back up and go, okay, that wasn't the right way to do it. Now I know, and I can try a different way and then try a different way, because eventually you're going to figure out your way.
Yeah.
And your way is good for you. Yeah. What works for you is right for you, is who you are. And what works for somebody else may not necessarily work for you. It might not, but it's like a recipe or a spell. You get to make it your own.
Love it.
You get to take the intention and the bones, and you just get to make it work for you.
Yeah.
So be kind to yourself. Be kind.
I love how, again, you model also how our greatest challenge in life is often pointing us toward our greatest mission. And I love that you are so completely in alignment with your mission and your consistent work with yourself and on yourself, that constant reflection, to keep yourself that clear channel that you are to work with these women who really need someone who gets it. Narcissism is a whole different ballgame. I cannot say that enough. Trauma is trauma. Yes, and there's a lot of similarities in how we kind of manage our trauma or the defenses that get created and all of that. But narcissism is a very specific thing, and Pi is clearly an expert in that realm, both personally and professionally, when it comes to how do you navigate that? How do you strip yourself down to the bones and recreate the who that you are and stand in your power? How can people find you?
Oh, well, I have a website. I can be found on my website. My company is called Full Venus Rising.
Beautiful.
So fullvenusrising.com is my website. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram under Full Venus Rising. So that's where you can find me.
Yay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And
awesome.
Yeah, and I have a free gift that I am offering as well. It's a copy of my book, my digital. You can get a free digital copy off the website, Full Venus Rising. It's called Mother Medusa: Weaving Myth, Ritual, and Magic into Healing from a Narcissistic Upbringing. And so yeah, you can get your free copy off of my website. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and you can always book a call with me if you want to go deeper and talk about ways that I may be able to support you if your experience growing up with a narcissistic mother has led you to this place in your life where you're like, oh wow, I get to do some work on these things.
You guys hear it? You get to
do some work on these things, and a guide would be really helpful.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
So yes.
Yay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure.
Yeah, it's always so good to see you and to feel you. Thank you.
Thank you. So much love.
Mwah. Okay.